Three, two, one. What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from here, the Spirit, presented to you by NoleGameday.com. We're here live on a not so wonderful Saturday evenings, but we're kind of used to this now. VZ, Florida State now 1-5 on the season. Florida State falling to the Clemson Tigers and Dabo Swinney 29-13 in Doak Campbell Stadium. Brock Glenn gets his start. Took way too many weeks for that to happen. We will discuss that most certainly throughout this instant reaction, VZ, but saw some life there in that offense, saw some things that maybe we weren't expecting to see from Brock Glenn, a few things with the deep ball and being able to just, which we kind of expected, having more energy and the leadership side of things and communication, something that we didn't see from the fifth-year veteran quarterback with DJ. And just once again, though, it's a consistency of mistakes, penalties, dropping balls, veterans dropping balls, your center with three horrible snaps.
It was more than three. Let me interject right there. It was more than three bad snaps.
I guess I'm trying to be nice, or at least I've tried to ignore them by having more glasses of wine to ignore it all. But yeah, once again, you're just seeing the repetitive mistakes, and that's how it's going to be for the rest of the 2024 season when we come on to these instant reactions. But let's talk Brock Glenn here, though, BZ. What were your thoughts on him coming into this game, and then what you saw from him throughout the evening? I thought I saw a guy that gave you more juice. We talked about it all throughout the week. This guy is going to bring more leadership, more communication, and he was able to use his legs. I thought he had one of the best throws all throughout the season for Florida State with that touchdown throw to Amari Williams, another true freshman. But this was a young showing from the whole entire team. But specifically, let's talk some Brock Glenn.
Yeah, that wasn't one of the best throws. That was the best throw of the year, pretty easily for me. He showed some guts, and he was willing to hang in the pocket and make some tough throws. And the play call wasn't always there for him. I'm so sick and tired of seeing screens set on the edge because they have yet to work all season. And I think we saw 15 of them tonight. But he's making some tough throws. He's standing in the face of pressure, and he's, making the plays that are needed to be made. It's something we didn't see with DJ, who would often collapse in the pocket, take the sack, take the hit. Brock's at least getting the ball out, and he's giving his receivers a chance. Now, did his receivers help him all the time? No. There was the Darian Williamson drop where if he doesn't trip over his own feet, he scores a touchdown. Jakai had a drop. A couple other people had drops. Or Tron had a drop. There are so many mistakes being made.
Did too. Yeah.
There's so many mistakes being made, especially by the veterans. That's what's so frustrating. I mean, we just talked about the snaps. Maurice Smith's a fifth-year senior with how many ever starts? 50, 45? I don't even know at this point. To have that many bad snaps in the shotgun where the quarterback's saying the exact same plays all game, that's frustrating. But Brock played well. I thought the young tight ends, for the most part, played okay. They didn't always know where to get lined up, and that hurt them on some quick game stuff. And then there was one throw where Brock Glenn was very frustrated with Amari Williams there towards the end of the game because Amari didn't bend the route in behind the linebacker. But they played better than Morlock did or has all year. Keep playing them. At this point, do it with the receivers too. There's no reason Elijah Moore and Luay McCoy shouldn't be playing over Darian Williamson and Tron at this point.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, like you're talking about the guys lining up and having mistakes here and there on that. That's also Mike Norvell and the coaching staff's fault. These guys should have been they should have had more playing time throughout this season. Definitely when you knew that this season was practically over. I felt like it was over after the Boston College game. I think a lot of us now it's pretty apparent that Brock Glenn should have been probably facing against Memphis, if not most certainly against Cal. But this was a showing where Mike Norvell, like we talked about it, no matter what, he was going to lose. Even if Brock Glenn played fantastic, he was going to take an L there. Or if he played bad, Mike Norvell was going to take an L. Either way, him and the entire coaching staff, not just the quarterback room, but as a whole, not showing some of those younger players is going to hurt him in a lot of different ways, and it showed this evening. But yeah, I mean, with guys like Maurice Smith and the entire offensive line, I mean, it was atrocious play.
Bad.
I mean, and it's not a shocking thing for that to be the case, but you would think you'd like to have some kind of pride whenever you have a true freshman quarterback out there facing Clemson. And to me, it's a rivalry game. And this game wasn't really over until later and the game. Like Florida State had a chance in this one, but mistakes, penalties, and I think just veterans cost Florida State having a chance in this, in my opinion.
Yeah, the fact that this was even a ball game is a borderline miracle. I mean, if you just look at the stats, we'll get to the veterans here in a second, but Florida State was outgained 500 to 250 in total. They were outgained on the ground 265 to 22. And Clemson had 28 first downs gained to Florida State's 14. The fact that this was only a 2-score game is absolutely a miracle. Florida State's defense ended up bucking up in the red zone and forcing them to field goals and blocked 2 field goals, which I know we'll get to at some point. But it's kind of insane that this wasn't a blowout. It very well should have been. But yeah, the veterans have to play better. And even some of the guys that you wouldn't classify as veterans, but have played, need to be better. Like Conrad Hussey, again, horrible performance. He let up that big touchdown trying to go for a hit on the receiver instead of trying to play the ball. There was a play late in the game where he could have had the receiver down 10 yards before, and instead of trying to tackle him, he just tries to push him out of bounds, and it doesn't work. Like, these are simple things that should be fixed, especially for a guy that's in his second year in the program that has played a lot of football at this point. And it's super, super frustrating.
It goes to coaching there for me on Coach Surtain. And I talked about it whenever Kevin Knowles, I forget what game it was at this point, though, and where I thought they could have made a third down stop if you just have a simple make the tackle kind of situation. And whenever you see, Florida State's got double coverage deep on the ball, and then you allow Clemson to find a touchdown out of that, but you're just kind of just knocking with your shoulders to try to take someone out or go for the big hit. That's something that Conrad Hussey has continued to show to you week after week, and there hasn't been a change. And that right there goes to coaching more than anything, in my opinion. Going back to Brock Lindo for me.
Well, real quick.
Yeah.
We have seen some changes at safety because KJ Kirkland's played a lot of football. And I think the only reason Hussey was in the game in that situation is because Shaheem got hurt, like the player 2 before that. But I do understand your point there for the most part.
And here's a comment here from Brian on Facebook, and this is where I don't agree. He said, bad coaching, we don't have a solid quarterback. I think if you add in a good offensive line here and some guys make some catches, you've got a solid quarterback because you're not asking for much, right, Beasy, from this quarterback and what Mike Norvell wants in this system?
Brock played much better today than I thought it would. Clemson's not an easy task for your third career start and your first start this season. I thought he played better than I would have expected coming into this game. He's got to get some help from his receivers. He's got to get some help from this offensive line. At this point, I don't know if that helps coming because this offensive line is so horrible. The tackles were consistently toasted all night. We've already talked about Maurice Smith. Andre Otto had the holding penalty that wasn't. It shouldn't have been a holding penalty, and it negated a huge play to Malik Benson. The offensive line's got to get better. The wide receivers got to get better. I don't really think that this is much on Brock Glenn. I think, like I said, I think he did everything you could have asked for him coming into tonight.
I think it's easy for us to talk about the offense, BZ. We're kind of just eliminating ourselves from the regular third and fullers here. I mean, at this point, what are we doing here where you can't get off the field on third downs? And then you also look at where the field goal unit, I think there's more energy on the field goal defense than there is on the actual defense as a whole on third downs. They had 2 blocks on the night. Where is that kind of energy? Let's bring that over to when you're trying to make third down stops. I thought the pressure was better, yes, and I thought that was good. I thought they did a decent job of what you need to do in the run game off of the threat of what you have there and the running back room from Clemson. I know you're limited there with what you have with Lundy and such, but I'm just saying that because of what we have as a product from Florida State the last 5 games. I'm not saying that it was like was a great game by them, but you still.
Like I said, Clemson still had 265 yards rushing, so it's not like they were doing a great job limiting. And honestly, third downs can be better, but Clemson was 6 of 15. It's not like that's the reason Florida State lost this game. They lost this game because of horrible play calling in that first quarter, and they just dug themselves too deep of a hole. And then they couldn't just make enough plays to get themselves back in, and too many simple mistakes that should be fixed by now with the drops and the bad snaps and the penalties, etc.
Mm-hmm. And I try to think too for Florida State in this offense, the screens. I mean, it's just continuous, just batting yourself into a wall that I don't understand. First off, Florida State's wide receiver blocking is absolutely atrocious, and that's something that Mike Norvell has pride in for his offense. It's been that way since he first arrived. Getting those blocks out there on the side, and those you usually use your athletes to make plays, and you get down there and you convert, or you get it first time, you get more. But that's just not the case right now. Malik Benson can block. You put some of these guys that are even smaller than Malik Benson out there trying to block, and then you throw it out there to Hakeem Williams, who, yes, he can make some moves here and there, but he's not the most agile guy. It just some kind of the personnel selecting and just a continuous try when you're on third down running screen plays when it's practically obvious. That's where I just kind of get. It's probably my number two thing with Mike Norvell this season, outside of the Brock Glenn and the quarterback change taking 6 weeks, or not 6 weeks, but 4 weeks for this to happen. It's just, it doesn't work anymore. And it will not work with what you've got at the wide receiver unit. And it goes on to Ron Dugans too, as well. In the wide receiver room, you've got to find guys that will block. If it's true freshmen, if it's whoever the hell you're going to put out there to block, you're going to have to put a tight end out there. I don't know. Screens don't work. Plain and simple. It should be over. Should be in the cemetery. We shouldn't see it until hopefully maybe 2025.
The most frustrating one was right before halftime. Florida State has a 3rd and 2 on the 33, and you're thinking, hey, if we get a score here, make it a 10-point game or a 7-point game or whatever, we could at least give ourselves a chance in the second half. 3rd and 2, they go 5 wide and then call a screen for Toa Philly and expect Douglas and Benson and Douglas to block for him. Like, what is this play call? It's 3rd and 2. Just give us a quick slant or a drag or a zig route or something. But a screen there was horrible considering how they had done to start the game. I don't know why they keep calling it. It hasn't worked all year, and other teams are expecting it because Florida State hasn't shown a downfield attack until this game. You started seeing a little bit in this game with some deep throws to Benson and Tron and some other guys, but the screens are not working, and I don't know why they keep calling it. It's super, super frustrating.
Yeah. And once again, we'll talk about it whenever we get into next week's show. But I feel like Alex Atkins, we've got a lot to discuss on the future of this offense.
He's got to go.
Oh, there you go.
Plain as that. He's got to
go. He's got to go. Time to move on from Alex Atkins.
It's year 5, and the offensive line is absolutely horrible. Yeah. And all of us said coming into the season, this should be a strength. This should be the strength of the team.
In the running back room, I thought that we were right there and the same regard.
And I get the offensive line's had some injuries, but we also praised the depth heading into this season. And it didn't, even before everyone got hurt, they were terrible. This offensive line has not looked good pass blocking. They haven't looked good run blocking. They've made consistent snap issues with Maurice today, holding calls. This is super, super frustrating on all fronts on that offensive line.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I wish I could go on here for another 10, 15-minute rant, but we've kind of been doing that for plenty of weeks now. I mean, we can just continue to say the same thing over and over again, but I try to go to the pros here more than anything, and I go back to Brock Glenn. I think this was I've seen some tweets too, and I agree with a lot of these guys that were tweeting and ladies out there. There was a lot of more entertainment in actually watching this game because there was actually hope. There was like, okay, I actually think Brock Glenn can get me down the field and he can convert and he can find the end zone, which he did. And I thought some of his throws, man, some of his deep balls, I don't understand why DJ lasted this long out here. I don't know. Like I said, I know there's been reports it's not NIL, it's no contract or anything like that. If it's solely on Mike Norvell in the decision there, that is a fat L on Mike Norvell in the decision making, because Brock Glenn should have seen the field against Cal, should have had a full game prep for that. He should have been on the road starting against SMU, and then he should have been.
Take it back further than that. He should, at the very least, he should have gotten snaps against Memphis because I was coming off a bye week.
At halftime, he should have been getting.
And it was coming off of a bye week after 2 games where DJ showed you basically nothing. At least get him some preparation in that Memphis week with the bye week. Get him some extra snaps and give him some snaps against Memphis, and then see how you can adjust it going forward. There's no reason his first snap should have come against SMU after DJ got hurt.
No, I was saying Cal. Like, it definitely certified it should have been Cal. But I mean, we were texting at the Memphis game. It shocked us and amazed us that we didn't see Brock Glenn out there and not that he was going to win the game for FSU in that Memphis game, but he deserved. They needed that. That should have been the turnaround for Florida State in the quarterback room, because DJ is primarily not it. Will never be it. Will never be it for any kind of football program moving forward. And best of luck, whoever gets them next. Sayonara to your football program, because this is what is actually happening to Florida State right now as we speak, looking at 1-5, heading into the first week of October. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Florida State does with just behind Brock Glenn. He finally had his first full week of game prep there, because if you go back, he never had any prep for some. He had a little bit of prep for some of these games in the past, but I don't take the Georgia game of any, because Tate Rodemaker pulled out last minute. Then you go to the ACC championship game, you were kind of last minute there on expecting maybe Tate Rodemaker to be available for you in a concussion. And then, of course, the Florida game, there was no expectation for him to be playing there in the swamp. So he had his first week. Like I said, tons of drops. I thought his precision on some of these throws were great. Yeah, it's a true freshman. There was some throws that you would want to have back, but that's just how it goes with a true freshman quarterback against a really good front seven with Clemson.
Technically a redshirt freshman, technically. And we haven't addressed his interception. I'd like to go back and look at it more, but it seemed like just a simple miscommunication where Brock was expecting whoever it was to make a deep in, and he did it in and up. Hakeem. Yeah, so I think that's something that'll get addressed. And, they have a bye week next week. You get 2 weeks to sort of figure some of the stuff out and see what works, see what didn't work, and make some adjustments going forward before you play Friday night at Duke.
What's interesting to me too, and we'll talk about it real quick. We'll finish off here with Jason's question about, Brock. We saw him kind of injured there at the end of the game, but there were some reports too that we might see two quarterbacks in this game. We would see Brock Glenn and Luke Kromenhoek. That to me, I would have been on here in a whole. I would have had to crack open another beer to have a good chat about Mike Norvell and some of the decision making. I think that would have just gone ahead and said, all right, you might need to look into whatever kind of buyouts you got, or whoever's battling or funding the battles in. We got to start figuring out what you're going to do with your head coach. That would have been one of the most idiotic things to do, in my opinion, to put in two quarterbacks. Brock Glenn deserved to have 4 full quarters. That would have been ridiculous. That would have been that would have been one of the silliest things I've seen for a coaching staff to do, and I've seen a lot of them happen in the last few months here in Tallahassee.
The only way I would have been okay with that happening is if, let's say, they're ending the fourth quarter down 42-7. Then it makes sense to get Luke some snaps against Clemson. Then it makes sense. It didn't make sense in a game like this, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Jason here talking about, is there a possible groin injury here for Brock Glenn? We saw him when he scrambled there at the end of the game, trying to go for a first down, using his legs. I'd love to see the competition that he was bringing tonight overall. But yeah, he did go down. It seemed like he was kind of injured there at the very end of the game. Some of the training staff, some of his teammates were coming over to him. We'll monitor that. We'll see. Dustin, D-Lou will be at practices this week, and we'll see if we'll get a comment from Mike on Monday on that. But seems like he got up and was actually walking around just fine. I got a text afterward that he was over there, and a lot of the Clemson players were over giving Brock Glenn a lot of love. So they showed a lot of respect to that redshirt freshman at quarterback, and we'll see what his availability looks like. But that was you could just see this offense moves better. It's just not a lot of parts helping out the redshirt freshman, VZ, and that to me just really stinks. And that offensive line is. It's bad. It's bad. It is what it is, though, VZ.
Yeah, it's far from redeeming, but 250 total yards against Clemson is your second highest yardage output of the year. As crazy as that sounds. So there's things to grow on, and they could have been well over 300 if guys make simple routine catches. So
yeah, I know, and we'll look back at. I'm interested going back, looking at some of the film and counting and tallying up a lot of these drops in here, and Mekhi Danzy, deep, true freshman, everything like that. But man, it's in your hands, man.
That Danzy one was interesting because they tried to set up that same play earlier in the game, and instead he dumps it off to Landon Thomas underneath because that wheel route got taken away and ended up being like an 18-20 yard gain. And then they went back to it despite it not working the first time. I don't know.
And you know what, too, outside of that, like we were talking about earlier, the miscommunication with Hakeem Williams there, and that was just straight on interception. That's on Glenn or whatever happened there. I thought he took care of the ball well, and that's exactly what you
Yep.
want from a young quarterback. Just take care of the ball well. When you had your fifth-year quarterback, that wasn't the same case, VC. We'd get on here and be like, what in the world? Why are you throwing it that way? Why is that even possible? And it happened 2 or 3 times in a game. And, yeah, you get picked off maybe 2, maybe 3 times. Sometimes it just wouldn't happen. You're like, whew, we got safe there, saved by the bell almost. But no, I liked what I saw from Brock Glenn. We saw growth there, and like we talked about earlier in the week, it's an L either way for Mike Norvell, and why we did not see number 11 out there earlier. Last thoughts, VZ, before we head on out of here?
Not really. I just hate that Dabo passed Bobby on Bobby Bowden Field. That kind of stings. But other than that, it's kind of what we expected from this game.
Yep, man, we had our guy out there reading a book again.
Oh, that was awesome. I can't lie. I actually cheered when he popped up on screen.
That was hilarious. It's funny. Those kind of things you just kind of got to laugh at right now, and all that kind of stuff. But that's going to do it for us this evening. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us, 1,500 of you listening in. Thank you so much. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button. I know FSU lost, but it helps go out to more FSU fans for us, and we appreciate it more than you can imagine. But enjoy the rest of y'all's weekend. We got a big storm, another one. Feels like it's just a weekly occurrence now, but got a big storm coming up next week. We're going to try to figure out our game plan for that. I'm down here in Tampa and St. Pete region, so going to try to figure out a game plan for we can do our show on Wednesday. Might end up doing it earlier. We'll see. We'll keep you updated there on Hear the Spear on our Twitter account. But nonetheless, thanks everybody. Safe travels back home, and we'll talk to you guys next week on Hear the Spear. Peace.